I am so tired of coming on this podcast every single week and telling you to stop playing T.Y. Hilton. Like, just stop it.
Mikey needs help.
Mikey needs help.
I was like, if you don't have Jeff Wilson in here, and if you don't run it on first down, I'm gonna strangle you through that TV.
You should know better than everyone else. That fool tears you up when you plays you.
Yeah, but he
Don't you want him on your team?
I have him at number 25.
Thank you. Fine. Todd's the reasonable one on this show.
I take issue with everything he said there.
Well,
I really do.
DeAndre Swift. He's gonna break them tackles, son.
That's bold. That's bold. That's putting your nuts on the table right there.
Hey, there's the first time for everything.
Waxing poetic over here with Todd Diamond.
Dude's old.
So what? He's not as old as Brady, and you're jerking him off before the show starts.
I have Sutton in my top 10. I have him at number 9. Yes.
You know what? I'm just canceling the league. I can't do this with you guys. 25 days until draft day and just 30 days until day one of the 2022 NFL season. What is up, y'all? Eric Lansing here along with the usual suspects, Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond. Guys, what's going on? How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. Ready for this podcast, because you know what this podcast is. It's
boy.
the dime a dozen. Do.
The Dime a Dozen podcast. So we must be talking about running backs.
Yeah, there you go. See? It's not bad. Not bad. You weren't too disappointed.
That
I
was
already hate this.
Todd preempted us. I got something funny to say in the podcast, and we were like, oh boy, here we go. That wasn't bad.
Okay, thank you.
Mikey, you ready for some running back talk?
Yeah, I'm ready for some running back talk. I'm excited. I put in a lot of research into this, and interesting to see where this goes between you and Todd.
Yeah, we'll kind of see how it rolls. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but we had some preseason. We had a preseason game tonight. I watched about 25 minutes of it, if that. Talking about some bad football. Fumbles all over the place. What I did see that was interesting, speaking of running backs, was Josh Jacobs played quite a bit in this one. I don't know what that says, what that means. I don't know if we want to talk about it now because he's Josh Jacobs. He's someone that I think is kind of polarizing this season. But when you saw him out there playing a lot, usually you don't see the starters out there. And I know, for those who don't know, the Raiders didn't pick up his fifth-year option. So, well, what does that mean? I mean, does that mean he things aren't as great as it seems to be on paper in terms of where maybe we have him ranked, or Kenyon Drake's still in the mix and they drafted a guy and Josh McDaniels is his new head coach, so maybe he doesn't like him? I don't know. What do you guys think, Todd?
I mean, obviously, I think with his situation he can be a bell cow running back, but obviously they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. I mean, maybe, it's something, proven, see if he can bet on himself kind of thing. See, maybe the Raiders were like, well, we're not going to give you a fifth-year option, so let's see if you can bet on yourself and see if you can put up some, put up some great numbers, and then we'll pay you.
What did you think, Miguel, when you saw him out there?
Well, I mean, here's the quote from Josh McDaniels, and take it for what it's worth. So he was asked, why he played tonight, and he says, because it's always good for running backs to get carries in the preseason because you can't simulate those reps in practice.
Do you believe him?
Yeah.
Isn't this a weird kind of situation? To see someone out there, it wasn't even like he played one drive. He played, I think, the whole first quarter and then some.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Could be him trying to motivate him. I don't know. I'm not putting too much stock into it.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. Okay,
yep.
Let's get into some news.
Well, this reporter was possibly a little hasty earlier. Would like to reaffirm his allegiance to this country and its human president. May not be perfect, but it's still the best government we have. For now.
We have a lot of it, so we're not going to spend too much time, but if you want to say something, feel free. Obviously, probably the biggest news of the week is Deshaun Watson. This is a weird story if you haven't gotten into it. We're not going to get too far into it, but the NFL handed out a suspension of 6 games, which meant we thought maybe he was going to play this year. We all adjusted our rankings as such. And then the NFL has decided to appeal themselves and possibly make this a full year. That hasn't come through yet. But what a crazy, wild story. It's crazy. Deebo Samuel got paid. He earned his way to a 3-year contract extension worth up to $73 million, which included $58 million guaranteed. Boy, I hope that quarterback situation pays off for San Francisco. Buccaneers Pro Bowl center Ryan Jensen will miss significant time. I don't know if I haven't really checked on this in the last couple of days, but it could be a whole year. Tom Brady's heart got to be breaking. It's got to be tough.
Yep.
All those Tom Brady fantasy owners. I don't know if that changes anything for Mike. You had him number 1, but that's his boy. It's big time loss in the center world, but whew, that's rough. If you're
you're telling me you can't find another fat guy to put the ball under his ass and give it to the greatest quarterback?
For a man that can't move in Tom Brady, you need all the best protection that you can get.
Yep. Maybe young Tom.
Right. He's going down.
Hey, what are you talking about? He can't move. He moved to Tampa, almost to Miami.
Yeah, he ain't got a plane or a truck to help him move out of the way of those guys coming at him.
Well, I guess too. As long as maybe if Tom Brady's playing the Cowboys because he's undefeated against them. So, just a quick stat on the TV that popped up there. So I was like, okay, cool.
Glad you're watching TV and not paying attention to the podcast. Thanks for that.
First of all, I had multitasking.
Keep moving on the news here. Some Marquise Brown news. I have 2 different notes, so we'll put them together. We mentioned Marquise Brown dealing with a hamstring injury, but should be back to practice this week until he was driving
Eric?
miles per hour, arrested, charged with criminal speeding. Now, I think in the past, I don't think it would have been much of a big deal. Maybe pay a fine. Maybe something happens to him in the offseason. I don't know. But after all that Henry Ruggs stuff, they might be looking to crack down on that. Stupid idiot.
I know. What?
Anyway.
Where saying goes is, where are you going?
Well, they just have these nice cars, and they want you to use them.
Cardinals said they wanted to acquire him for speed.
Well, there you go.
What you pay for.
DeAndre Swift's usage is being monitored this camp to keep him healthy. I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people. Christian Watson, we were pretty high on him, having his right knee scoped. No timetable on his return. One site I saw today shows he's day-to-day, but I think it's a little worse than that. How about our favorite vulture, Taysom Hill? Suffered an injury to his ribs, expected to miss some time. So for those who are interested in Jameis Winston, they would love to see him on the shelf and stop taking away touchdowns, or even if you're an Alvin Kamara fan. Mikey?
I thought you were saying that because he looks like a vulture, but no, okay, I got it.
Nope, that's not what I meant. Chase Claypool injured his shoulder on Friday. The guy who claims to be the number 3 receiver in the league, or at least a top 3 receiver in the league, waiting to see how serious that shoulder injury is. We'll find that out on Friday. We're actually recording this on Thursday night, so maybe you'll find out by the time you listen to this. New Cowboys wide receiver James Washington is going to miss 6 to 10 weeks after breaking a bone in his foot. He was all hoping to earn that second spot on the depth chart after Gallup still dealing with his injury from last year. So just keep an eye on that battle, and maybe something we'll talk about in the wide receiver rankings. Matt Stafford dealing with, quote, an abnormal elbow pain for a quarterback. That's scary as heck. A story on ESPN said that the Rams were comparing it to what pitchers deal with, which doesn't instill any kind of confidence in me appreciating Stafford. Now it's early. Things could get better, but keep an eye on it. They gave Stafford an injection and are kind of in a wait-and-see approach. Oh, boy. Deontay Johnson now can focus on football after reaching a new deal worth $39 million if he reaches all of his incentives. 27 million of that are guaranteed. And some just heartbreaking news, especially for a Bronco fan, Tim Patrick. His season ended before it even started. He tore his ACL during practice this week. Broncos signed former Packers wide receiver Darius Shepard Yay, the North Dakota State product has got 6 catches in the last 14 games over the past 2 years. So, yeah, there's your news. There's a lot more than that, but those are the key ones over the last couple days. And if I miss anything, you guys can scream at me. But, yeah, some good news, some bad news, some stupid news. But there you go.
The Patrick thing that sucked. That really – he was our most consistent wide receiver the last few seasons, but – yeah.
Now it's the Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy show.
And KJ Hamler.
Yeah, we'll see. He's just coming off his injury. Who knows how quickly he's going to come back. That takes a while for a lot of folks. So, but we'll see how it goes with the rest of Wilson in tow. Maybe the tight ends end up being a bigger factor than we initially thought. Okay, MHA trivia. We have a lot of running backs to go through. So this is going to be some quick MHA trivia. All right, guys, you ready for this? Running back trivia.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So we're going to go through the top running backs and points scored in our league from last season. Now, did you know that there were 6 out of the top 10 that were not picks in the first round? Does that make sense? So the top 10 that scored in our league last year and amongst running backs, 6 of those 10 were not picked in the first round. So I'm going to have you guys tell me who those top 6 running backs were. We'll go back and forth, and for each one you name, you'll get a point. If we're tied, I do have a tiebreaker question ready to roll. So you guys get the question?
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying we have to tell you the 6 that weren't picked in round 1?
Correct.
Or just okay.
So we'll go back and forth. I'll let Todd go first because he's definitely behind in the season rankings. So Todd, give me one of those guys that finished in the top 10 in our league last year, but did not get picked in the first round.
Leonard Fournette.
And is Todd correct? Yes. Todd Diamond, right out of the gate. Fournette was actually selected in the 6th round. And I'll tell you where all these guys finished. Actually, let's just do it now as we go along here. Let me bring it up here. Leonard Fournette finished 7th in our league in points with 221. So Todd picks up an early point. Mikey, your turn.
I'm gonna suck at this because I don't have no recall as far as who was taken in the first round last year.
Well, I don't want the guys in the first round. I want them in the 2nd round or beyond.
Right, but what I'm saying is I don't remember if they were taken in the first or not. Don't
Oh,
get smart with me.
Well, just think about the guy. Look, I don't know what it's like because I'm always the one coming up with the trivia, so I'm not on the other end. So this is where I am. However, Mikey, just think about the guys to finish in the top 10 and guess.
All right, because I know I took Najee Harris in the 2nd round, so I'll go with him.
Attaboy. See, now you're using your mind. Good job. Mikey picks up the point. Najee Harris picked in the 2nd round. He actually finished 3rd in our scoring system with 263 points. Todd, back to you. So we have 2 of the 6 already claimed.
James Conner.
James Conner is correct. James Conner was selected in the 8th round, and he ended up finishing 6th overall. So well done, Todd. You're off to a great start.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mikey, back to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, the top scorer in our league last year with 331 points, was selected in the 2nd round. Well done, Miguel. Worried he wasn't going to be good at this game. He's just tied Todd at 2-2. Back to you, TD.
Zeke.
So it's Zeke, one of the guys not drafted in the 1st round. No, I'm sorry, Todd. He was. You were drafted 9th overall after my pick by Cooper's cousin. So while he did end up finishing 5th in our points, he was drafted in the 1st round. First X. So Mikey, a chance to take the lead. Who you got next?
I think Eric just helped me out because he said he took Elliott. Cooper's cousins took Elliott, and Cooper's cousins, I think, also had Joe Mixon. So if he did that, then I'm going to say Joe Mixon.
Look at Mikey go. That is he was worried about trying to recall information. He is absolutely correct. Joe Mixon, 4th pick in the 2nd round, and he finished, I believe, 4th overall in our scoring. That is correct. So Mikey takes the lead. So now we go back to Todd. 5 of them have been selected. Chance here to tie things up, Mr. Diamond.
Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson. So Gibson did finish, let's see, 6, 7, 8, 9. He did end up finishing 9th. However, he was selected in the first round, and he was selected with the last pick in the first round. So nice try there. Mikey, chance to win the game here.
Oh, man.
So this is how it's going to go. I'm going to give Mikey an opportunity. If he doesn't get it, I'll give Todd one more chance. And if not, the game's over. Mikey wins because we can't spend too much time on this.
Okay. I'll go Aaron Jones. I don't remember if he was first or second round, but I'll go that way.
Aaron Jones. Todd, where did you pick Aaron Jones last year?
7th.
Todd, you with us?
Yes.
So where did you pick Aaron Jones? You selected him in last year's draft, didn't you?
Yeah, number 7 overall.
But what round?
Oh, first round.
So sorry, Miguel. Aaron Jones went in the first round. All right, Todd, chance to tie it up. Your last chance, or Mikey wins the game. Who's your pick?
Eckler.
And the answer is Austin Eckler. Second round pick. Ended up getting picked by Notorious CUP. And he ended up finishing second overall in points with 296. We are tied, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So here's the tiebreaker question. There was one running back, and whoever just scream out the answer. If you know it, so whoever gets it first gets it first. Okay. So here's the question. There was one running back in the top 24 who was not drafted. So the top 24 scoring in our league that was not drafted. Who was that running back?
That had to be Cordero Patterson.
And that is correct.
Yeah.
Good job, Miguel. He ended up finishing 13th overall in our point scoring system. But it was not drafted. So there you go. Once in a while, you can find a diamond in the rough. But unfortunately, MHA trivia. All right, let's talk about some running backs. Yeah, we love running backs. Score a lot of points. However, take the brunt of injuries. I mean, you talked about all those guys, in the first round. Christian McCaffrey was the first overall pick last year, injured. Dalvin Cook, injured. Kamara, injured. Henry, injured. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. Zeke, hurt a little bit, but mostly it was Tony Pollard. Nick Chubb, he got hurt for a little bit. Saquon got hurt. Antonio Gibson, I don't think he was hurt. But, man, running backs, tough. And if we talk about the top 10 and how they finished, Jonathan Taylor finished first, Eckler second, Najee Harris third, Joe Mixon fourth, Zeke fifth, James Conner, that son of a gun, finished sixth, Leonard Fournette seventh, Alvin Kamara 8, Antonio Gibson 9, and Nick Chubb 10th. Okay, so getting into this, we always ask the same question. I feel like we've said every year we do these previews. Who's the number one? Who is the number one running back in your rankings? A majority of the places I've read, it's been mostly Jonathan Taylor. But Mikey, you do not have Jonathan Taylor as your number one. Tell us who it is and why.
Look, and I can't argue against Jonathan Taylor because if he's number one, I mean, how could that be wrong? If Christian McCaffrey is healthy, and I know how big of an if that is over the last 2 years, there's just nobody like him. Like what he gives you in the receiving game and the touchdowns and just his overall all-around game, total points. I don't care any of these guys on this list that can meet his level on a week-to-week basis when healthy. And so that's what I go for.
I get that. Obviously, the injury is what I think puts everyone off. Who knows what his numbers would look like the last 2 years if he was healthy? He could be the clear number one. I mean, Jonathan Taylor had quite the year, especially both on the touchdown side of things, on the reception side of things, on the team he plays for that runs first. Where Carolina offense is a little, we're not sure what to expect. Probably not on the same level, but it's interesting to see. I don't think anybody's going to argue with you on that. For a guy who put up just massive numbers, he's missed 18 games last 2 years, but in the 4 games he played last year with a 50% snap share, he finished running back 1, running back 3, running back 4, running back 3, averaging 21 points a game, which is incredible. And that's what you want out of your first round pick, especially if it's your first overall pick. Todd, why do you prefer Jonathan Taylor over McCaffrey?
Better offensive line, and really, it is really the injury concern the last 2 years. I mean, it's kind of all right, 1 year, okay, injured, all right, you kind of get a pass, but yeah, the last 2 years, not what you want, especially when you're drafting, drafting in the top 5 or whatever the case may be, and you want somebody that, I mean, again, injuries can happen regardless, but you want somebody where you feel comfortable drafting, where injuries
Like
aren't
word safe.
safe. But but regardless of the the injury situation, Jonathan Taylor just has the better offensive line, and offensive line are running back's best friend, and Jonathan Taylor has that in Indy, and he is the I don't want to say clear, because we haven't had. I mean, said we talked about earlier, the only running clear cut number 1 running back that we've seen in fantasy and reality, in the last get, it was LT. But with Jonathan Taylor too, he can catch stuff. He can catch out of the backfield. He can, and everything like that. So that's why Jonathan Taylor, to me, is the number 1 running back, and like you said, probably the safest. If you're going to pick number 1, if you're going to go a running back and you want to go safe, that's what you want.
My concern with McCaffrey, and I have him the lowest out of all of. No, actually, Todd has him the lowest at 5th. I have him 4th. The thing that concerns me about Christian McCaffrey is at some point, the coaching staff is gonna say, we need to. It sounds absurd, just getting ready to put this outside of my mouth, but you got to preserve him. So that means giving it to other folks. I'm not saying he's not going to get a majority of the carries. They brought in Deonta Foreman to come in and take some of the snaps away so he can be healthy for a full year. Now, a lot of running back situations are in that same kind of feel, right? You want to bring someone in. I mean, we've seen the Alexander Madison show a few times in the last couple of years, because they need him to kind of take some of the pressure, some of the workload off of Dalvin Cook. But I think in that case, at some point as a staff, maybe we shouldn't give it to him 30 times a game or give him 30 touches a game. Maybe we need to, make him go for a full season. And maybe even in that instance, he's still going to put up tremendous fantasy stats. And we haven't seen it yet, where someone's going to come in and take some of the carries, some of the touches away from him. But at some point, when does that change?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a good point.
I mean, besides injury, like, I just see, where can he fail? Like, if he's on the field, where can he fail? He can't, because even if you're stopping him in the run game, this is somebody that pretty much every week gets anywhere from 8 to 12 targets in the passing game every single week. So, I mean, that's better than most wide receivers.
I get that, and you're right. However, they've been doing that, and it hasn't worked out because he's been hurt. So at what point do they put in Foreman or Chuba Hubbard and give them more run so they can preserve McCaffrey so he makes it past week 4 or 5 into week 16, 17, 18?
What are we preserving him for? What do you need him in those weeks? You're going to not be in the playoffs anyway.
But you got to understand, those guys are playing not for fantasy. They're playing for playoffs. I'm not saying Carolina's going to the playoffs. but
Whoa.
they got to be able to use a guy down the stretch if they're trying to figure out what makes them good, what gets them as a young team. You're trying to build around. You're trying to build continuity and chemistry. And if he's always out by week 4 or 5 because you're giving it to him 25 carries and 10 reception or 10 targets, then at some point you got to be like, you know what, maybe you should reel him in a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to reel him in to like half and a half, but at some point you got to take a look at the guy that's in front of you and realize maybe we need to not give him a full workload.
This is not
But
the NBA. We're not load managing people, okay?
I disagree. I disagree. You talk about Aaron Jones, then bringing in AJ Dillon, they need to make a playoff run. What I mean, I think a lot of running back situations have that because they need to preserve. When
Yeah, but
McCaffrey's
there's
100%, and he's the problem. He's arguably, you can argue the other guys, Taylor, Henry, and whoever, but that he's one of the best in the league. But at some
look. I'm
point, go ahead.
I'm going to argue the difference between Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon versus Christian McCaffrey and what other garbage is in that backfield.
Okay, you can argue it. And I'm not saying they're going to get the same production. And I'm not saying Carolina's making the playoffs. But you need to keep the guy healthy. And how do you do that? Less touches. That's the only way to do it. If you run him into the ground, he's going to be on the sideline. And then we're going to be talking about who picked up Deontay Foreman in the free agent pool. Okay, we got to kind of keep going unless you want to throw one last thing out there. But we talked about who our number 1 guys are. Mikey had Taylor number 2. I had Derrick Henry. Todd, you had an interesting one at 2.
yes, I had Najee Harris. And the fact of the matter is
Najee wow, nuts. Go ahead, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Najee Harris is going to be the bell cow running back, and we talked about it earlier. The fact that the NFL is going away from the bell cow running backs, but Najee Harris proved it last year: 1,200 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 74 receptions, 964 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns. A total of 10 touchdowns. He will be the bell cow in that offense next year because of the quarterback situation, Trubisky, and if you don't know if Pickett's going to be the quarterback, in week 1, so they're going to really lean on Harris. But Harris just like McCaffrey, multi-purpose type running back. But I just think this is going to be not. He obviously showed really flashes last year and everything, but this is the year that he really steps it up and really shows the league. He can be a top tier running back going forward.
Just to correct Todd, he had 467 receiving yards, not 900 some yards receiving.
Oh, I said,
but what makes you believe, Todd, that he's going to take a step forward? What changes for you that makes you think he'll have a better season this year?
I just believe just how the offense is going to be this year because of the quarterback situation. Obviously, I know Big Ben last year, was on his last leg anyway. So, but the games that I saw, and what he did and how he runs, he's kind of that patient runner. He's kind of has little flashes of like Le'Veon Bell and how he was a patient runner in that offense, and how he would just wait for holes to open up in that in the offensive line, and everything like that. And I think too with the fact that he'll be the he'll probably be that 1A option in that offense, and this upcoming season for the Steelers. And I think, like I said, they're going to really lean on him. Now, we just talked about a few minutes ago about how, some teams running backs are watching the load management situation and making sure they, last. But, Harris definitely showed last year that he can continue what he did last year and even more. So that's why I think Harris is why I have him ranked number 2, and why, again, I think as of right now, and I don't think anything will change, he will be my pick at number 3.
So, Mikey, what do you had Harris on your team last year? You did lead the league with 381 touches. Is Todd crazy to think he'll finish as a top 2 guy?
I have my concerns.
But he's not
One of them
crazy.
being Todd's always a little bit of crazy,
Yeah.
but like, here's my issue. So
Mm-hmm.
he had 11 games where he was under 4 yards a carry last year.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why he got to where he was just sheer volume. Like, they were using him as that he was like number one option in the passing game, number one option in the running game, which he could still be that. But I think the big difference now is Steelers were a team last year that, even though Big Ben was getting old, they were playing in competitive games, and games were close, and they could continue to just use him in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
If they're a bad team this year with Mitchell
Mm-hmm.
Trubisky quarterback, I don't know. I don't know that he'll get the same kind of opportunity. And if this is a team that's struggling to score points,
Mm-hmm.
then his opportunities to score go down too. So, I mean, I like him, but I'm skeptical.
Well, you got to figure too, his offensive line is not good. 30th ranked O line according to Fantasy Pros. You talked about his 3-point or his yards per carry. He was under 3.9 the whole season, and that was 4th worst among running backs with 200 plus attempts. So he's not super efficient. And so when Mikey says volume, that is volume. He just gets so much of it to get 307 attempts, 74 receptions, and I don't think there's anything to say that he won't get a majority. I mean, obviously the running backs behind him haven't changed. Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, Jan, they're not going to do much for you. Mikey has Jonathan Taylor, number 2. We've talked about him. Let's get our thoughts. Mikey, I'll get your thought on Derrick Henry, who you have 3rd, obviously coming off a big injury. He put up some massive stats before he got hurt. For those who remember, I mean, he was averaging 22 points per game, 29 touches per game, and he was actually doing okay in the reception category before than what we've seen in the past. So, Mikey, you still like him? Not concerned about the injury?
No, I'm not overly concerned about the injury. I mean, with him, it's like when he plays, you know what you're going to get. It's free points. He's the only running back of any of these guys that averages 1 touchdown a game for his career, which is ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's a free 6 points every week just from that. And then you can just add on, the rest. I mean, he's not a big reception guy, but I mean, if Tennessee didn't tell you in the offseason that they were committed to him in the run game, then you weren't watching closely.
Yep. He actually came back last year in the playoff game. Wasn't great. He ran 20 times. But I mean, it was a foot injury, and they do run the heck out of him. So we'll see how the trade of A.J. Brown changes the offense. I still think you'll get a ton of carries. The offensive line is not great, but that didn't seem to bother him last year when he was putting up just stellar numbers. He ended up finishing 15th overall, despite missing a good portion of the season. That's how good he was before he got hurt. Still going down the line here. We're talking about those kind of next, still the elite guys, but Austin Eckler, Todd, you have him ranked 4th. What a season he had. He ended up finishing 2nd in our league with points. He had 911 yards rushing, which is pretty high for him. 12 rushing touchdowns, 70 catches, 8 touchdowns receiving. What do you think? What do you like about him, and why do you have him ranked as high as you do in your running back rankings?
Well, and it was interesting when I was with Eckler and Harris, because I almost was going to have Harris and Eckler flip-flopped a little bit, but the reason why I have Eckler where I have him at is because of Justin Herbert. And the reason I say that is because I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more. Now, granted, a lot of those passes can go to Eckler, But I think it's going to be a lot of Keenan Allen. It's going to be a lot of Mike Williams. So that's why I have Eckler where I have Eckler at 4 and Harris at 2, because I think Harris is going to be the more, like I said, Harris is going to be the more featured player on that team. And Eckler, there's so many weapons. There's so many weapons on that Chargers team, and that's why I have Eckler where I have Eckler.
Sure. But they had these weapons last year, and he finished second in our league. So I think that, but I think that's the difference between volume and a good team is that the Chargers are going to score a lot of points. Maybe that changes because defense has got better in the AFC West, but just the sheer explosiveness with Herbert and Allen, getting them in towards the red zone. Is he going to score, close to 20 touchdowns again? Probably not. But he only had 70. Only 70 receptions. He had 92 3 years ago, so that could even improve. And you talk about the backups, the 4th round pick, Joshua Kelly. Like, he still should get a majority of the run there as running back too. Mikey, do you want to say anything about Eckler before we move on? Lots to like about Eckler, I think.
Look, yeah, I agree, but I try and search for clues. And so honestly, like when you look at Eckler and his career, not much changed last year. Like he pretty much got the same kind of volume as a runner, pretty much the same as a receiver. The touchdowns is what was the difference.
Yeah.
And touchdowns is like, I don't know, it's one of those stats that unless you're Derrick Henry, that I or Jonathan Taylor, then I don't necessarily bank on it. So it's hard for me to think that he's going to hit 20 again. So that's why I think I lowered him. He's lower. I have him lower than you guys do because I think that's going to drop. I mean, yeah. Doesn't mean I hate him, but I just don't see him matching that.
Yeah. 14 games with 10 or more points. 7th best offensive line in the league. A lot to like about him. I end up having him 3rd over McCaffrey. Let's talk about sure. That's what the stats say. Crazy. Let's talk about, I'm going to skip around here. Let's talk about Saquon Barkley, and I'll start with you, Miguel. Trying to find him on your list. Wow, you have him 19th, Todd 17th, and I have him 12th. So low on Barkley. We talked about McCaffrey and his injuries. Talk about Saquon Barkley for me.
Well, part of this is from what I've been hearing from out of their training camp is that they're not really planning to use him all that much in the passing game, which is concerning considering that's what made him so, exceptional in his rookie season was his receptions. So if they're going to just play him as a running back and not really use him as much in the passing game, then for me, it just doesn't. I don't really like him that much. That's without mentioning the injury problems.
So you're saying they're taking his touches away to try to keep him upright for an entire season?
I don't know if that's the reason. It's just I've heard things about this coaching staff. Sure. They are a Brian Daboll he's a pass crazy coordinator from Buffalo that's going over there, but for whatever reason they're just, I don't know, they don't want to use him as much in the passing game.
Todd, your thoughts? I'm sorry, go ahead and finish.
They seem to be keen on Matt Breida for some reason.
Well, I mean, I think if anything, that helps Barkley. If you don't believe in Breida, he doesn't deserve to be on the field. Barkley should be out there more.
That's what I think. Obviously not what they think.
Todd, your thoughts? I know he burned you a little last year after you traded for him, but do you still like him? Don't like him?
I don't know, because you think, okay, the injuries finally have to come to an end sometime, because just, the injuries just keep piling up year after year. It's something else going on, but I don't know. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical on, even if Saquon dropped to the the third or fourth round maybe of our draft, would I still be comfortable even then drafting him? I probably would draft him in those, like if he dropped that far, because obviously there's it's low risk because you've already maybe gotten your top guys in the first 2 rounds.
Here's the problem I have with your guys' rankings in terms of, as fantasy, every running back has an opportunity to get hurt. Yes, the Barkleys, the McCaffreys, they've been hurt before. It's frustrating. But the point of fantasy is to get the guys that can win you a championship. Are you telling me, Todd, you have David Montgomery ahead of him, that he's going to win you a championship if he plays his best football? No. Ezekiel Elliott, maybe. But I still think the ceiling is so much higher for Barkley. And I think that's what you have to do and think about.
Whoa.
You're telling me that the talent is not there for a guy who had what do you have 7 games last year, despite the stuff that he's been dealing with of 8 or more points in a game. He's going to get all the carries. He's got a new coach that comes from the Josh Allen Buffalo Bill offense. Their offensive line got better this year. And by the way, contract year. He's got a lot to prove this year.
I'm not saying none of that's true, but what I am saying is we talked about this 10 minutes ago, in which you said, but you got to go for the safe guy.
No, I did not say safe guy. What I said was, I mean, all those guys at the top that we talked about, and the Taylors, the Henrys, the Ecklers, those are championship winning running backs. But David Montgomery, even Leonard Fournette, in my opinion, those guys aren't championship. Saquon Barkley has an opportunity to be that guy.
I question that.
Sure, and that's why we do. That's why we're doing these rankings. That's why we're going through them, so we can talk about what we like about him. You know, I have him ahead of guys like Nick Chubb, who's off. He's going to be nowhere near opportunities to score what he has in the past with their situation and quarterback situation. Javonte Williams, he's there in time. You know, if you're talking about a guy now, he has.
Are we forgetting that Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the Giants, or did I miss something?
No, he's still the quarterback, but a lot of things change for it. He's going to get all the carries. Is Nick Chubb going to get all the carries? No. Is Javonte Williams going to get all the carries? No. Saquon's going to get all the carries.
Which is why.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned like David Montgomery's going to get all the carries.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
Why wouldn't he?
Because of the rest of the squad, and not to mention an offense that was just the absolute worst in the league last year.
I mean, we're comparing apples to apples here, Giants and Bears.
And Montgomery has been at least shown he can stay healthy a little bit more. So,
I mean, you saw Khalil Herbert pick up time and do some things when he was out there. We also know Fields is going to run around and pick up his own rushing ability too. I don't know. I feel like the Giants' offense is a little more advanced, or going to be a little more advanced than what Chicago is going to bring to the table. But that could be just me.
Maybe.
The idea is Saquon and his abilities are way better than some of the guys that you have above him. If we're talking about taking that chance of winning a championship. But that's me. Any last things before we move on?
I guess what I'm saying is when you're talking those two offenses, it's like picking between the turd sandwich and the giant douche. There's no winners.
Oh, very good, Mike.
Saquon put up really good numbers with Daniel Jones. Am I wrong? Was Daniel Jones not the quarterback when he put up those big numbers?
I don't remember. That was like 3 years ago.
It's not like the Giants have been super studs in the offensive category, but that's how good Saquon Barkley, I think anyway, can be when he's 100% healthy and he's got everything lined up for him this year. Times are rolling here. One of the questions I wanted you guys to do, and I'll start with we'll start with Todd this time. Ask you to rank these guys. Talk about Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, and Nick Chubb. Todd, give me your rankings, and then you can talk about Aaron Jones, that's your boy, but rank those guys and talk about one of the guys, and I'll have Mikey talk about one of the other guys.
Okay. So I had Mixon 1, Jones 2, and Chubb 3. So
Okay.
I'll talk about Aaron Jones. What a shocker.
Love that guy.
Yeah, I
Love, love,
mean,
love, 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 love him.
Aaron Jones is right up there with James Jones and
Yeah, that should have been your favorite player. Except he kind of
yeah,
screwed
he
you
was,
last year.
it's a little bit, but no. So the reason why I have Aaron Jones
That
number
was such a
10.
sigh. That was such a sigh from Todd.
No, no.
Like you're trying to convince yourself that you like him enough. You have him ranked
Yes,
10, which is 2
yeah,
spots behind
You
Mixon.
have
Go ahead.
Mixon over him.
yeah.
But he said I
So
told him he could talk about whoever he wanted to.
okay. So all right. So the reason why I still believe in Aaron Jones is obviously no Devontae Adams anymore. Their wide receiver course. I mean, Alan Lazar's your other guy. He probably might be the number one guy. Watson, he's obviously hurt. I mean, Randall Cobb, fine. Aaron, that's Aaron Rodgers' boy. Fine, whatever the case may be. But the reason why Aaron Jones is still obviously I think is an elite running back is, like I said, just the way the NFL is now and the way the evolution of running backs have just come along, run and catch. And Aaron Jones can do all that and more. And the fact now, with no Devontae Adams, they're going. I mean, that's going to be Aaron Rodgers' safety blanket. That's really going to be the player he looks to, whether if nothing down the field or across the field, he's going to find Aaron Jones.
All right, Mikey. So go ahead and rank Mixon, Jones, and Chubb and pick a running back you'd like to talk about.
All right, so I had Jones, Chubb, and then Mixon, all in sequential order like that. How do you like that?
You
Huh.
like Mixon the least of those guys.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll explain the Jones thing, and I
Go
won't
for
take 25 minutes to do it.
You don't love
Look,
Jones as much as Todd does.
Huh?
I said you don't love
Well, no,
Jones as much as Todd, and just in love, not necessarily rankings love, but
well, I had him higher than Todd.
you do. You do. You have him ranked 8th. Yeah.
Me and Todd agree on one thing. Like the Devontae Adams thing it's a very big thing. I mean, Adams was one of the players that took up most of the red zone targets for Green Bay. Without that there, I believe both Jones and Dillon will get their fair share in the red zone now. I mean, I went back the last 3 years and charted 7 games that Devontae Adams missed. Aaron Jones averaged well over 22 points a game in those games that Adams missed. So, that's part of the reason that I like him. Chubb, I'm kind of the reversal of what you were thinking, that Cleveland won't be as good, that he wouldn't have as much opportunity. I think it's actually him and Kareem Hunt. I like both of them. I think this is going to be a team that's more, with Jacoby Brissett behind center, that's more built on the run, and they're going to need Chubb even more. And Mixon, I don't hate Mixon. Mixon's in a great offense. I don't know. I feel like there's so much hype surrounding the 3 receivers. He's kind of the forgotten guy, and maybe this is Burrow's push, his 3rd year coming off a Super Bowl. Maybe they want to try and get him MVP, that maybe their offense goes more pass than run.
I get that. I have Mixon, Jones, then Chubb, and actually have Joe Mixon 6th because I think based on a team that got to the Super Bowl, and I said this on one of the previous podcasts, that they're going to more rely on being balanced. I think that they want to go out there and whatever the matchup dictates is what they're going to do. If it's a secondary that can just chop apart, they'll get to their 3 great receivers. If it's a defense that's going to dime it up and leave things open for Mixon, for a guy that was 3rd in the league in total touches, he was also 3rd in goal line carries, so he's going to get all of the run. Their offensive line was already ranked in the top 15, added 2 great pieces. So I think they're just going to get better in that regards too. Now there'll be days where maybe Joe Mixon is the forgotten guy because they're just throwing, Burrow has 4 touchdowns and they're all to the top 3 guys over there. But I also think they want to be balanced. And he was 4th in our league in scoring despite all the great success that Burrow had. So I'm super high on him just compared to the Chubb. We talked about Chubb and we all had Aaron Jones around the same spot. So I don't think I need to say much more about that, but they're all top 10 running backs for some. I'm a little outside for Chubb 13th, but a guy that's kind of been all over the place, obviously with something off the field. We talked about Alvin Kamara. Mikey has him incredibly high at 4, Todd 6, and I have him 7. So still a top 10 guy, but Mikey, has there anything that you've heard recently that has you not worried about the potential suspension that could come?
No, I would have thought by now that you would have heard anything, like
Sure.
anything, but you haven't. So, like, my guess is this thing is not going to be any sort of factor during the season. Otherwise, we would have heard something by now. So, I'm fully prepared that he's going to, if not injured, will play the full 17 games and be the normal Alvin Kamara, except this time with a better quarterback.
Yep. He did miss 4 games last year. Still racked up 9 touchdowns after racking up 21 in 2020. But he was a workhorse once again for him. Did have a career low 3.7 yards per carry, but had a career high in rushing attempts with 240 because they had to because of their quarterback situation last year. So we'll see how things pan out for the Saints. You hope the offense gets a little better. Obviously with Jameis Winston back from his injury, Michael Thomas not all the way back yet, but could be in the mix. Chris Ovale. So interesting to see there. Todd, I'm going to ask you about James Conner. What a season for James Conner.
Yeah, I don't think I think if you would have said, well, James Conner is going to finish in the top 10 of our scoring league,
Top 5.
top 5. You probably would say, are you high? What are you on? Are you on something?
I would have said you were high. I would have said it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I wouldn't blame you because I'd probably my brain would be like, this is even nuts for us. But it's gonna be. I mean, can he do it again? You can almost say, well, it was a flash in the pants last year in what he did and how he finished. Kind of we're looking for, starting his career kind of over, right? Kind of pushing the restart a little bit because obviously, we saw how bad sometimes at times he would be when he was in Pittsburgh. I mean, Eric, you know all too well about all his struggles he had in Pittsburgh. But can he do it again? It's a tall task. That's a tall task to do it again to duplicate what he did last year. I mean, I have him 13th in my rankings.
Well, as Mikey said earlier, touchdowns are fluky. He had 18 of them last year, which is a ridiculous number. Mikey, I assume you think that he probably won't reach 18 touchdowns again. Can he be a top 10 running back in your opinion? Is he someone that we should keep an eye on? Whether that's late, middle of the second round, early in the third round. What do you think about Conner?
I think there's a path to that happening. I mean, you just have to take a look at his last 7 games in which he averaged over 20 points a game. That happened when they finally decided, okay, you're the starter and Chase Edmonds is not, and gave him the bulk of the carries. Now, it's not like he had over 100 yards in any of those games. He didn't. But what you saw was his receptions just went up like crazy. I mean, he was getting 4 or 5, 6, receptions, and his receiving yards went up. He still had the touchdown. So there's an argument for it. It's not like they brought in somebody to kind of worry about sharing the load. They brought in Darrell Williams from Kansas City. It doesn't really concern me too much.
But do you think but granted, yes, he had 18 touchdowns. So you're telling me he's going to fall into the end zone 18 times again this year? I mean, I don't know.
I don't think
Well,
Mikey said. I
well,
don't think
well,
Mikey
no, no,
said
no,
he.
no.
Well, not saying that.
Not
You
that.
know,
I think he's gonna, if he's healthy, I think he's gonna get more of the like receiving and running statistics that he
then
didn't have
touchdown.
that whole first half of last year.
So you don't think? Okay, so all right. I guess that makes more sense in that case because he's not. I don't think he's going to get 18 touchdowns. I don't think anybody's
No,
agree.
and I don't think James Conner thinks he's going to get 18 touchdowns.
18. He fell.
However,
Yeah.
however, you know, with DeAndre Hopkins out for a bit, we'll see how quickly, you know, may take a little time for Marquise Brown to kind of figure things out in that offense. I mean, he's going to be relied upon. He was, you know, and he was tied for second in the NFL in goal line carries. So they relied on him, and he came through. You know, and even just a couple years ago, he had 12 touchdowns when he was with Pittsburgh. So I don't know. I feel like as much as I could bitch about him for burning me last year, you know, I think the opportunities are there for him. The offensive line's not the best. Obviously, Mikey's talked many times about Kyler Murray running around for his life. He averaged a career low 3.7 yards per carry, but the chances are there, and the offense will score points.
Yeah, easily was getting 20 to 25 touches every game in the last 7.
Volume. You talked about volume with Najee Harris. You know, and you know it's Connor was a tough one to gauge for me. I have him ranked 18th, and I wonder if that's even too low. Moving on, some guys later on after these guys: Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs. We kind of talked about Jacobs before. Mikey, you want to talk about either Zeke or Antonio Gibson? Any of those guys intrigue you, or when you don't like them, you do like them?
Gibson, it's hard for me to like Gibson because I've heard these quotes early on that they intentionally drafted that Brian Robinson guy, the rookie, because Ron Rivera wants this to be like a dual running back system like he had in Carolina with D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. That's scary. They signed JD McKissick back to all this money to be the third down back, so that scares me. I don't know. It's almost like they're trying to tell me that they don't trust Antonio Gibson to be like that guy. That's what they're showing me with their actions. Zeke, he's going to have to be a bigger factor. Like, they don't have the receiving core that they previously had. Like, I feel like Dallas is still going to be a competitive team. Their division sucks. You know, they're going to be able to score. I just think they're going to have to do it more through the ground game than the pass game as they've done in previous 2 years.
Does Tony
You're
Pollard
not worried about
scare you at all?
I mean, yeah, but like I feel like you know, Zeke is still going to be like call it 65-35. Like Pollard is really small. Like I just don't think that Pollard is going to be able to handle any type of workload to supplant Ezekiel Elliott.
I hear you. Todd, you want to say something about Zeke or Gibson or both?
I'll say I agree with Mikey Gibson. You just don't know if they're really going like a 3 running back or 2 running backs. No, I don't want anything to do with that. Elliott's going to have to be a bigger part of that offense. Josh Jacobs is interesting because I think when he first came in the league, we thought, okay, Josh Jacobs is going to be, you know, bell cow running back and so forth. Obviously, some injuries and so forth, but I think the way this Raiders offense is now constructed, now that you have Devontae Adams, that definitely gives more opportunity to Josh Jacobs now to be the number one guy and not have everybody, honing in on him like they would if Adams wasn't there. Because I guarantee you, teams now are going, with Adams there, they're going to double team, triple team, or whatever, however you want to frame it.
I think all three of these guys were tough to decipher. And I think we're at the point of that draft. We're in the 15, 16s, close to 20th in terms of our rankings. I think but Josh Jacobs has the talent. He's a talented running back. He's averaged 9 touchdowns the last 3 years. But then Josh McDaniels comes in. Kenyon Drake's still in the mix. Something he did a lot last year, although he was hurt a little bit. Brandon Bolden now comes over. Amir Abdullah. They draft a rookie. So all of that, is scary for Josh Jacobs' world. There's so many other players. Now, in my opinion, he's better than all of them, but we've seen what New England does with their running backs. They like to go by committee. However, it is a contract year for Jacobs. He's got a lot to prove, but the Raiders could run him into the ground and just get rid of him next year. But in that mix, he could be very successful. Gibson, I feel like, is also a very talented dude. The thing that scares me with Gibson, he's got the most fumbles since 2020. And so with McKissick, with Brian Robinson in the mix, if he starts fumbling again, those two could just take over.
Yeah,
then he's not in a good place because, man, Washington's got a good offensive line. I like what he did last year in terms of just putting up attempts and touchdowns, 42 catches with 3 touchdowns. Just another guy that was difficult. And Zeke, you've said pretty much the same things I've said, so I won't say too much about him. That O-line did lose a couple of parts, so take that for what it is. But I feel like they always end up revamping or bringing new folks in. Let's get into some backfield battles. We'll try to reel these off quickly because we're well over time anyway. But we're going. It's running backs. People want to hear about them. We'll start with Mikey. And this will be, I'll ask you both these guys these questions so you both can answer, but I'll start with Mikey. So in these backfield battles, we kind of talked about Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, but my question to you guys is, do you want Aaron Jones in the 2nd round or A.J. Dillon in the 5th? Mikey?
I would take Jones in the 2nd.
Okay. Just give me a quick reason why.
Just kind of explain it. I think that he's got a ceiling this year that he didn't last year when it comes to red zone scoring. So, I think he's going to have a big year. So that's pretty much why.
Okay. Todd, same question. Aaron Jones in the 2nd or Dillon in the 5th?
Yeah, Jones in the 2nd. I mean, I won't say anything more because I, say enough, but his Aaron Jones is the more talented running back and the one I trust the most. So,
yeah, I have to agree. I'm not going to disagree with you guys. I was just thinking of A.J. Dillon because him and Jones, they split kind of towards the end. Now, I read later, and, who knows if this is correct or not, but they talked about Jones is dealing with a knee injury, and that's why Dillon got a lot more carries, and then they were trying to lighten the load for Jones as the playoffs looms. So who knows if that's true or not, but, I still think Jones is the better runner. It'd just be interesting to see if they do go full split. All right, Todd, how about Javonte Williams in the 3rd round or Melvin Gordon in the 8th?
Javonte Williams in the 3rd. To be honest with you, when Williams was getting more carries and what he was doing on the field, I was like, this is our running back of the future right there. And I was not that I was mad that we re-signed Melvin Gordon, but Javonte Williams is that bell cow running back that we haven't had.
Mikey, what do you say?
I say Melvin Gordon in the 8th, and here's why. Somebody's going to have to convince me that the Broncos didn't re-sign Melvin Gordon so that this was going to be that somehow this was going to be a Javonte Williams 90-10 or 80-20. That's not going to happen. I mean, Gordon actually had the same amount of carries as the exact same amount of carries as each other last year. Gordon had more yards and more touchdowns. And other than Gordon's rookie year, there has not been a year that he's played, and that's 6 years since, where he has not had at least 8 rushing touchdowns because he's good in the red zone. So I don't know. I just feel like he's a he's a sleeper value.
Who starts?
Williams will start. I don't.
Okay.
I believe that, and I
Okay.
believe that Williams will get more carries. But I think it's more of a 60-40 type split than I think most people are thinking as far as Javonte Williams is concerned.
Okay.
Yep,
I
100%
like that.
agree. You're not going to find that value in the 8th round, a guy that, finished 1 point behind Devontae Williams. And for Melvin Gordon, for as much crap as we give him, for as how the fumbles sometimes hurt him, he's averaged 11 touchdowns per season the last 6 years. And the offense just got better than they did last year. So kind of excited for Melvin Gordon as a late round pick as well. All right, Mikey, Travis Etienne or James Robinson? And those are just straight up.
I've got ETN, and this has more to do with James Robinson coming off of there's two things. So first of all, Robinson's coming off an injury which happened late in the season last year. So I mean, he's no telling that he's going to be like fully healthy. He's like still not 100% right now. But the other thing is this is an entirely new coaching staff again, and I don't know. I feel like Doug Peterson will want to use the explosive playmaking of Travis Etienne. I'm excited to see it.
Todd?
I have to go with ETN too as well. Now, obviously, just because not going with ETN just because Robinson burned me as well. But I think the more explosive running back, ETN, that's why they drafted him 25th overall. So I'll go with the more explosive, weapon for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, the reason why I went into that question, because I feel the same, but James Robinson has been productive the last 2 years. I know he's got that injury. And ETN, we haven't seen anything from. Now, obviously, he has a great pedigree coming out of college, but sometimes that unknown can be quite exciting. We'll see how it kind of all plays out.
Achilles is a tough one for running backs too.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, he's still pretty young though too. I just feel like everybody's always kind of overlooked him, and even for me, I'll draft ETN first, but James Robinson's going to get drafted at some point, and he might be one I'm interested in because he might be hurt to start the season, but he's just always been productive since he's been out there. He just gets overlooked. Very underrated dude. Last one, we'll start with Todd. Cam Akers or Darrell Henderson? Is that even close?
It's Cam Akers. I mean, he was going to be this. Obviously, he was going to be the starter, and he was, until he got hurt before the season started. And obviously, I jumped on the Darrell Henderson train very quickly. But it's Cam Akers. Cam Akers is he's the more talented back, and obviously, if he didn't get injured last year, and what he's shown toward the end of the season as well. But it's Cam Akers as much as I'd say last year. Well, Darrell Henderson, has some flashes, but it's Cam Akers. It's Cam Akers. That's not even close at this point.
Darrell Henderson, as you mentioned, showed some life. Mm-hmm. He had close to 700 yards, 8 total touchdowns, 29 receptions. Cam Akers hurt for a majority of the season, but the system liked him. Sean McVay likes him. He played in the playoffs. He would top out a guy returning from Achilles injury. Now he only averaged 2.4 yards per carry in the playoffs, but he also played 81% of the snaps, especially in that, at least 81% of the snaps versus the Buccaneers. So, Mikey, I look at your rankings and it's not even close. So you feel, just give me some of your thoughts on Cam Akers. What excites you about him?
Well, the Rams offense is what excites me about him. I'm always very wary about these guys and these gosh darn Achilles injuries. So that
gosh darn.
Gosh darn it.
Thanks for keeping it. Thanks. I don't have to find a bleep or anything. Appreciate that.
No, it does scare me a little bit. I do believe he'll be the starter, and I don't think it's going to be a real split. I respect Darrell Henderson for what he's done, but I believe it'll be Cam Akers as the number one. And Todd says not even close. Well, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we agree.
Cam Akers. All right. We're well over time. If you both want to give me one sleeper, and then we'll end it with that. So, Mikey, go first. Give me a sleeper, running back
Um,
sleeper.
I mean, my sleeper is Eli Mitchell. I know I've got him a lot higher than both of you guys do. I just feel like 49ers have shown that that's the guy now that they trust in that run game. And the Shanahan offense, man, when it comes to running backs, it's something that I value and trust. So Eli Mitchell is my sleeper.
Yeah, he's all right. I agree. Kyle Shanahan's system. But man, I mean, how many attempts does Debo Samuel get as a wide receiver?
Okay, all right. See, and I would be willing to consider that an argument, but I took a look at the last 5 games. Eli Mitchell was over 20 carries in each one of those games.
Yeah, and I benefited having him on my team. Helped me win a
Yeah,
playoff game.
yeah. So I mean, I think they run the ball enough for everybody in that system.
I just worry. I mean, for them to use a 3rd-round pick, Jeff Wilson's still in the mix. Remember that 3rd-round pick of Trey Sermon a year ago?
Yeah, and
Like
they
at
fell
some
they
point, I
fell
mean,
out of.
is it a full-blown committee here, or is he going to get every single snap?
I don't
I
think
don't
it's a
know.
full blown committee. They fell out of love with Trey Sermon very quickly. Like once they have their guy, they have their guy. I think he's
I
that
guess
guy.
he's just not that exciting. And maybe that's a stupid thing to say. It's fantasy. It provides points, but like just looking at
Neither was.
fantasypros.com, he was like 36 amongst running backs in juke rate, 30th in breakaway run rate,
Those are
34th
those are.
in yard per touch.
It
Go ahead.
sounds like you're reading me Madden statistics. I don't care
Yeah.
about any of that. I care
Well,
about
I mean,
fantasy
I'm
points.
just looking at the stats, and I've watched
Juke
him
rate.
play. He's not
I care about a juke rate.
thrilling. What's that?
I care about a juke rate. Remember when
Well,
Mike Anderson was here? Nobody cared about his juke rate.
oh. I just think I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he was lightning in a bottle. I don't know, but their offensive line even got better, and their offensive line was good last year, and they picked up Trent Williams, or they got Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey, so pretty awesome offensive line. Todd, give me a sleeper.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Ooh.
Obviously, when he came into the league his rookie year, everybody was like, "Oh, this is going to be easy," and kind of struggled a little bit. But I think this year, coming in now with no Tyreek Hill, I think that opens the running game a lot more for him, and as a pass catcher too as well. So I like Hilaire. I like him this year with how the Chiefs offense is going to be this year.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire has dealt with knee injuries, ankle injuries, hip injuries, ankle injuries. Obviously, the big question for him, even coming out of college, was because he handled a full running back workload. What are some of your thoughts on CEH, Mr. Miguel?
I'm kind of indifferent on him, to be honest. Like it's kind of like he's okay, but you know what the Chiefs do. It's like he's kind of like I guess he moves up a notch with Hill as far as being like a kind of a go-to guy, but he's kind of unremarkable to me.
He's
When
Go ahead.
I just kind of say, he's okay. He's not a bell cow. I mean, the most carries he had in a game last year was 17. Okay. They don't heavily use him that much in the passing game, which I thought that they would, but they don't.
That's the problem I have with him, is that he was highly touted out of college as a guy that can catch the ball. Now, I don't know if that's him or the offense just not throwing to him. But if that's one of the guy's
Yeah,
strengths, they don't utilize it because it ain't his big bulldozing rushing through defenders. He was 59th out of 65 qualifying running backs in yards after contact. 59th because he's getting tackled on the first opportunity. And so if you're going to be one of those running backs, you got to be able to make guys miss and catch the ball. Now, that I'm not blaming it all on him. That just could not be the offense that they're trying to run. But that's just super disappointing. But the last thing I'll say is they didn't re-sign Jerick McKinnon or Darrell Williams. They brought in Ronald Jones. So
well, they did bring back McKinnon.
Did they?
Yeah, they did, but
okay,
yeah.
I saw that. I saw it. Maybe it updated, or I didn't type it down correctly. So I mean, so there's some competition there, and I know McKinnon's a guy that can catch the ball, or they maybe utilize to catch the ball a little bit more. But like Todd said, he may have the opportunity to try to prove himself because he has not done so far. All right, so that's where we're going to end the show. Maybe we'll do more sleepers on another podcast or butts or whatever, but we are well over. So sorry for those out there who have to listen for more than an hour. I think we're actually probably like an hour and a half. So we apologize for that, but there's a lot of running backs going on, and we try to get to as much as we can. We'll talk about some others as we get closer to draft day. But it's interesting to kind of go through these running backs, their situations in terms of who's the backup. We didn't really even talk about the backups of these guys, but that's the state of the running back. There are a lot of them, and they're such an important, obviously, position in fantasy sports. So, guys, thanks for coming on here on this August 4th. Next week, talk about some wide receivers. Maybe we'll try to figure out a way to go through that quicker, just so we can get to more of them, because obviously there's a lot more wide receivers than running backs. So, for Mikey Renaud, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.